All right, welcome everybody. We're gonna give it another minute here for people to filter in. A lot of people are joining us here. We will give it another 30 seconds or so, and then we will get started on time for everybody here. Morning. See some people saying hello in the chat. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, everybody. My name is Matt Hernandez. I'm with Aceable and Prep Agent, and I am the host facilitator for this webinar today. So this is the second of our limited series of New Agent Career Accelerator webinars. We started doing these because we, both at Aceable and Prep Agent, we both have a mission of supporting y'all past just getting your license, but actually helping you be successful in the business. So with that in mind, today's topic is how to choose a broker. And we're going to introduce Doug here in a minute and get started. So before we begin, one housekeeping note. If you have a question during the webinar, you can enter it in the Q&A feature in Zoom. So you can just go ahead and use that Q&A. It's down in your Zoom tools near the chat button there. I will be here to monitor the chat and monitor those questions, but that's the best way to make sure your question gets seen and gets answered. There will also be time for Q&A at the end, so you can wait till then as well. And we will do our best to get everybody's questions answered here. So real quickly, before we start, we're going to start with a quick poll. And we're just looking to see what's everybody's status right now. Do you have a broker? Have you talked to a brokerage? Have you only talked to one? Have you talked to a few but not decided? So go ahead and answer, and we'll give it a few seconds for people to answer here. We've got about half now. I'll give it about 10 or 15 more seconds, and we'll take a look at the results. Okay, almost 3/4 of us. Give you about 5 more seconds. All right, so let's take a look at those results. It looks like over half of us, 51%, have not even talked to a brokerage. This is going to be great for you then. Some of us maybe have started a few conversations, and a very few people already have one and maybe are thinking about switching. So this will be, I think there's going to be something useful for everybody here, but definitely great to see a lot of people are looking to find out what they need to know before they get started. So with that, let me introduce Doug. He's going to tell you about himself, and then we will get going. So Doug, go ahead and take it away.
Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Doug Byron. I'm live in Austin, Texas, live music capital of the world and best city in America. But anyway, yeah, thanks, Matt. This poll was really helpful, helped me understand kind of where you guys are in the process. So I'm a real estate broker. I've been doing this for a little over 20 years. I had 2 real estate brokerages from 2005 to 2012. And during that process, I was fortunate to be able to interview, hire, train, manage, mentor a little over 100 agents. And through that experience, really gained some useful insight into really the needs of a new agent getting into business. And fortunately, unfortunately, saw people go down different paths, some of them successful and some not. And so, again, it's helped me gain insight. And so even though I'm not in the agent management business anymore, I still do service work. I mentor a few agents today. And from time to time, at least a couple times a year, I have friends and family who say, hey, Doug, my cousin's getting into real estate. Would you talk to them? They want to get a sense for you, kind of the best place to begin. And so I'm always happy to sit down with them over coffee or a Zoom like this, and just kind of lay out those options, tell them the pitfalls and tell them what to look for, help explain really the right questions to ask. That's the reason I'm here. The folks at ACEable asked me to visit with you guys today and kind of cover really at a really high level, really some things you should be thinking about before you even start calling brokers, and then even more importantly, when you sit down in front of them, what questions you should be asking. So it's a little bit about me. As for my real estate career, I began working with first-time home buyers. I worked in second homes. I worked in the luxury space. During the recession, I did short sales and foreclosures. And since 2013, I've been working around investment and then construction development as well. So I've got a really kind of vast and wide range of knowledge around real estate. So anyway, that's enough with that. So let's move on to the course content. And again, I want to remind you that there's a Q&A. You can put questions, and Matt will be reviewing those throughout the webinar, and we'll cover those towards the end. Okay. Okay, so the webinar today is how to choose a broker. So just some of the topics we'll cover over the next 30 to 40 minutes. How to choose a broker. Why is this important to consider right now with where you are in the process? It looked like a majority of you have not started interviewing brokerages. That could be because you're still working on pre-licensing. You might be have recently passed your licensing exam. So you need to understand today what kind of brokerage types are out there and what is the brokerage landscape in 2022 across the United States. We're going to cover what to expect when talking to brokers, and think about what you bring to the table when you go to the interview. It's not all about the brokerage, really. At this point, it's more about you. Okay, so this is your career. You're getting started today and need to make some good, smart choices. But part of that is identifying what do you bring to the table that the broker themselves might benefit from. Okay, we're going to show you how to prepare for interviews. And again, last but not least, we'll go over a Q&A. For those who are able to stay on the end, we will have a free download that'll give you an interview questionnaire. That's something you can bring to your interviews. You can take our template, you can modify it according to your wants and needs. But again, this will be a good starting place for you guys to know kind of really what hard questions do you ask the broker when you get in front of them. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Okay. Okay, how to choose the right broker. So let me tell you my perspective where you guys are today. So you've done all this work going to get a license, and now what? You all of a sudden you have a license and your phone's not ringing. The bottom line is you need to figure out what's the right broker, the right path for you to go down. If you're here with us today, you've chosen residential real estate, most likely. And really the most important decision you're going to make over the next year with regards to your career is, what is the first brokerage I go to? If you make the right decision, you're going to get the right training, the right support. You're going to develop your business in year one with all of the fundamentals. Okay, we're just doing passing and dribbling right now. Okay, we're not looking for slam dunks in the first year. We need to figure out. We need to get you in the right direction with a simple business plan. We need to teach you fundamentals of prospecting, marketing, how to build a database or the network you're going to be marketing to, okay, and how to spend your precious time. Am I going to do open houses? Am I going to do cold calling? Am I going to start to build a niche? Okay, these are some of the questions you need to answer in your very first year. If you end up with the right brokerage, with the right support, the right direction, you're going to be off and running in that first 1 to 2 years and really start to make a really good living right out of the gate. The flip side is if you make the wrong decision, you end up with the wrong brokerage without the right training and support. You could end up in a dead end. It can be frustrating. It can create psychological turmoil, and it can hurt the pocketbook. The bottom line is this is a business. You're investing in it. You're investing your time and energy today. You're going to be investing time, energy, and money in the future into your business, and you really need to make this decision carefully. If you make the wrong decision, it could end up costing you a year or two of your life, and we don't want that to happen for you. And the biggest takeaway at the moment I want to give to you is that there is no brokerage that offers a one-size-fits-all. Okay, I can't say that enough. I mean, there's certain brokerages are going to fit certain personality types and certain agents with different skill sets and backgrounds. There is no one size fits all. So even though your peers are saying, oh, you need to go to XYZ company, they offer the best value proposition. Well, I would turn around and say, what's the right value proposition for you? Okay, I hope that makes sense. Okay, the major types of brokerages. And again, this is where I really want you guys to start taking notes and really paying attention here, because if you're like me, when I was in your shoes 20 years ago taking licensing work, I thought I'm just going to go to work for a broker. I'm going to go to work for the one that's convenient to me or makes the most sense. But really, there's different business models out there. I want you guys to understand how to identify them. So the first we're going to talk about is basically the traditional real estate brokerage. If we go back in history, this was the Remaxes and the Century 21s of the world, which most of those companies are they're great companies and they're still in business. And, in the past 20 years, we've started to hear names like Keller Williams and Coldwell Banker increasing their footprint. But there's also a lot of local and regional companies out there. Your market has plenty of them, but traditional brokerages, typically, they have brick and mortar. In other words, they have an office space. They've got a broker. That broker could also be the sales manager, could be the trainer, depends on the size of the company. The different staff members in the company might wear different hats and carry different roles. But these brokerages typically have new agent training. They also have ongoing professional development. They have broker support in-house, meaning they have somebody you can go and sit down and talk to when you have problems or when you need a solution to help convert a certain type of business that you might have, or if you want to look for new opportunities, you want somebody to brainstorm with. A traditional broker typically has all of that infrastructure in place, okay? And today, those brokerages, they tend to charge 70-30 commission splits, sometimes 80-20 commission splits. But again, these are full service traditional brokerages. Again, we have both national, sometimes they're franchised companies, and we also have some local and regional companies, which are often privately owned and tend to be smaller in size. Then we also have boutique companies. Most markets have a boutique brokerage. Boutique also takes the form of a traditional brokerage. They tend to have a very recognizable brand in your market. They tend to focus on the higher end price points. Okay, so in any given market, there's a median home price point. You guys generally you should always seek to know what that number is. In my market's 450,000. Okay, so a boutique company would tend to focus on the upper end of the market. If your median is 450, like ours is, they have a long-standing reputation and a good brand behind it. They tend to be smaller in nature. When I get to a little bit more into the pros and cons and what each of these business types looks like. But those are two types of traditional brokers, both the full service and the boutique, who are both a little bit different from each other. Okay. And then moving on, phenomenons that have started to take hold really in the past, I'd say 15 years. 15 years ago, what happened is the real estate industry really, in my opinion, got turned on its head when the working at home phenomenon became more prevalent. So up until 16, 17 years ago, most agents went to an office. And then all of a sudden, 2007, 2008 rolled around, and everybody had high-speed internet. Everybody has access to, web-based platforms and CRMs and technology. CRM meaning customer retention management platforms, database management platforms, all the stuff available online. So a lot of agents started working at home. And the need for a brick and mortar, it diminished within the real estate industry. So what happened as a result of, we've got a couple of new business models were born. And one of those is basically the flat fee brokerage. This would be a lower overhead company. They would tend to offer the agents, for instance, a 95-5 split. And that says 95% of the commissions being kept by the agent, or sometimes even a flat fee, like for instance, in our market, we have companies that charge as little as $150 per month to be an agent in their company, where the agent keeps 100% of the commissions. Okay. Again, we'll get a little bit more into the features and benefits, but this flat fee model has really become very prevalent. And this is where I put up an asterisk for new agents, that this model may or may not be ideally suited for you. Okay, and we'll get into this. So you're going to be lured by it because that 100% commission thing, but keep in mind 100% of nothing is nothing. And so if you have a broker who's able to help you generate business, and in return they want to keep 30% or maybe even 20%, that might be the direction you decide to choose. But just keep an open mind as you interview brokerages and learn about their business model. Another model that's really become prevalent is companies that offer profit sharing or revenue sharing for their agents in exchange for recruiting. Okay, and so here's what I mean by this. There are companies out there, I think EXP is a big one right now, who offers basically a revenue sharing program for their agents. So in other words, my name is Doug, I'm Doug Agents, and I refer John agents. And if the company hires John agent, then I would have a residual income based off John's gross sales, as long as we're both in the company. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but it's a residual income model, and it can be very lucrative for the brokerage, and it often is, and it can be lucrative for some agents who decide to participate in that kind of recruiting and referral process. So again, we'll get into a little bit more of the details and nuts and bolts of that here in just a couple of minutes. Okay, so that's kind of high level overview on the major types of brokerages. Okay, so we'll dig into full service again. In full service, I will say this: I think a majority of the companies that you'll be interviewing in the near future will fall under this category. Okay, I still think this is the dominant market share, although the flat fee companies are really taking market share. But full service, I just, at my face value, this is where I think most of you belong. Because of the training and support you're going to absolutely need, I'm going to underline that need, in your first year or two of business. So the full service brokerage are going to be much more likely to have comprehensive new agent training. Okay, again, fundamentals from business plan writing to learning scripts, adopting practices, learning some of the technical proficiencies surrounding contracts that you haven't already learned in your coursework. So this is really good training and support for you to have. These brokerages typically going to charge 70-30, maybe even 80-20. I'd like to point out that sometimes these commission splits are negotiable, and this is going to come up during your interview. So it's a question you might want to ask: are your commission splits negotiable? Now, here's what I would say to this. Generally speaking, for a new agent, there's not a ton of negotiation with splits. However, there are exceptions. If you're bringing something to the table, for instance, I have a family member who's a mid-sized builder in my market, and I'm going to be able to list 12 of their homes per year, and they're open to the agents doing open houses there. You're bringing value. Use that as leverage to negotiate a better deal for yourself, if you can. That might not be the most important thing, but I think it's worth putting on the table for whatever company you're interviewing. Okay. Okay, so full service brokerages tend to be, they could be very small in nature. They could be as little as two agents, and they could be, 50 for a local company. Okay. Once you start talking to the national, regional and national companies, some of which we mentioned before, they might have much larger offices. It could be, 50 to even a couple hundred agents. We have a real estate office in Austin, Texas, with 1,800 agents in one office. That's I believe, the largest real estate office in America right now. So anyway, for me, that would be too big. But a two-person agent office for me would be too small. But again, this is not about me. This is about you guys. I just want you, taking this to heart and thinking about it, just kind of thinking about this. What kind of work environment am I really looking for? Okay, so the pros for full service is they're going to tend to have everything a new agent's going to need. Okay, they should have the training and support available. They typically should have some kind of brand recognition. Okay, personally, I wouldn't want to go to a company who's brand new to town. I would want to first get a feel for what the people are like, because the brand means a lot, but the people means just as much, if not more. So for me, I want somebody who's tried and true, who's got a reputation, and a reputation for doing good business. That's really, for me, above all else. I want a company who does business with ethics. Okay, I want agents who are productive. I want to be around agents who are very productive as well. But ethics would be really my number one concern. Okay, because reputation means everything in this business. Okay. What are some of the cons of full-size brokerages? Well, sometimes these companies can be large. Okay, and sometimes in the larger companies, you'll find yourself that even if they do have really great, robust new agent training and support, well, that's got a lifeline, right? So let's say you're a year into that, and then all of a sudden, where they really lack is for that 2, 3, or 4-year agent, and then all of a sudden maybe you get lost, lost in the herd, and really kind of lose your way. Okay, so it can be harder to understand kind of where you fit in that kind of brokerage once you get past the new agent startup phase, which is again typically going to be about a year. Okay. So those are some pros and cons of the full service brokerage.
Real quick, could you just give us a couple examples of full services brokerages that people might have heard of?
Yeah, sure. That's a great segue. Yeah, sure. So full service, some of the national brands you'll recognize: Keller Williams, Coldwell Banker, Remax, ERA, EXP. I want to make sure I'm not slighting anybody, but these are all great companies. They all have great attributes. None of them are perfect, and none of them are for everybody. Again, one size does not fit all, but they're some of the bigger brands. Keller Williams now, I think, rebranded as KW. They are an Austin-based company, so I'm very familiar with them. But again, and I was a Remax franchisee. I love Remax. I love the support they get from the national level. And again, ERA, EXP, Coldwell Banker has some great regional offices as well. Okay. Okay. Flat fee brokerages. So flat fee brokerages, typically, these are going to be lower overhead companies. And when you have lower overhead, that typically means lower level of support. Okay, less infrastructure, less technology. Not always. Again, I'm making very generalized statements. I'm gonna take 2 seconds. So typically lower overhead, lower support. They're going to offer higher splits, so 910, 95.5, maybe a flat fee per transaction. Some of them charge a flat monthly fee. So in other words, you pay, let's say, $250 a month, and that covers all your brokerage expenses, with the exception of maybe an errors and omissions per transaction fee. Okay, so that's going to be a way to really, if you really wanted to be able to keep all of your commissions, or a majority of them, without having to go get a broker's license and build your own company, this would be a way to do it. Okay, so if you're an agent who has a good solid book of business, or if somebody's giving you one, again, I use the example, let's say I've got a sister who's a builder and she's going to let me list 12 houses for her this year and do open houses. And I already know that, okay, out of those 12 listings, I'm almost guaranteed to earn $100,000 a year income. And I don't need any branding. I don't need a lot of support. I may decide that a flat fee company is for me. Now, again, I will say, I don't think that's an ideal situation for a brand new agent. But again, situation dictates and everybody's in a different situation, okay? So pros for flat fee, get to keep all the commissions. And it could be a good environment for self-starter, for somebody who's got a business plan, who's got sound business acumen, who might come from a consultative sales background. This might be a good fit for you. So I think it's worth trying on for size, okay? Cons, generally a lesser amount of content with regards to training. And this might leave you exposed, okay? It might leave you exposed to missing opportunities. I can't say enough of how important this is, that you guys are new in business, and when you get an opportunity, in other words, it could come in the form of somebody you met at an open house who wants to buy a house another house tomorrow, or it could be you've got a cousin who's ready to purchase, or your barber says, hey, I'm ready to list my house and sell. So now that you uncover an opportunity, you need somebody to help you convert that opportunity to eventually a closed transaction so that you can get paid. And if you're with the right organization with the right support, they're going to help you convert that opportunity into a closing and a commission check. I hope that makes sense. Okay. The other area you've got to really be concerned about is risk and liability. Okay. Your broker carries risk and liability on everything you do, but you do as well. Okay. We can we can be sued in this business. This is something that should be top of mind. And so again, having the right support system will help ensure that you stay out of trouble. I've been doing this 20 years. I've never been to real estate jail. I don't know what that looks like, but people do get in jail, do get in trouble for doing the wrong thing in this business. So again, I just want to, I can't reiterate enough that you need to look for a company that offers you the right support as you go down the path of beginning this career.
Doug, sorry to interrupt real quick.
Sure.
I think we lost your audio briefly at the very beginning when you were switched over to the slide. So can you just reiterate the first point that you made about flat fee brokerages?
Yeah, so my apologies for that. So flat fee brokerages, I think what we're talking about probably was the commission splits being kind of the pro. Is that where we were?
Yeah, I think just at the beginning, I believe you mentioned just that they might have a little less support, but you might get a higher fee.
Got you. Okay, so flat fee brokerages, typically what this means is this is going to be a brokerage who maintains their business with low overhead. And by maintaining low overhead, they're able to allow you to keep more of the commissions. And the way they do that is by offering high splits or flat fee models. Okay, so with low overhead, unfortunately, comes less support. And that support can come in the form of less training, less staff, less office space, things like that. So low overhead, low support, high overhead typically equals high support. I hope that makes sense.
Great, thank you.
Boutique brokerages. In most markets that I've been in, large and small, we can go to town and recognize that there's one or two or three companies who really stand out, really via traditional marketing, advertising means. In other words, they still use billboards, they still do print advertising, they still put flyers out in the front of the house. They might post advertisements in restaurants, things like that, or in the front window of their office. These brokerages tend to have kind of a long-standing presence in the community, very recognizable. They tend to have a good brand that follows a certain type of business that they portray. that they are a big part of, have large market share within that space. And so typically it's luxury price points, okay? And so they tend to be luxury focused brokerages. Upside to that is that as an agent, you get a sale of a luxury home, the commissions are larger. The downside for a new agent is that a lot of times if you're part of a boutique brokerage, you're almost pigeonholed. So in other words, I could go, let's say myself, Doug joins luxury brokerage in Austin, Texas. And it's on all my marketing, and people think of me as the guy who does $1 million homes. But I have my best friend who lives around the corner and has to sell a $300,000 home, which I would love to help them sell. But they don't call me because they all of a sudden think that, oh, Doug just does luxury. So you can pigeonhole yourself. But the bottom line is boutique brokerages, luxury markets are a great place to work within. It's high demand. A lot of people want to kind of be in that space. So it's very competitive, and it takes quite a while to build a book of business in this space, of course, depending on where your background lies. Sometimes to break into a boutique brokerage or break into the luxury space, you may decide to take on a role as an assistant working for a top producing agent, within one of those companies. Of course, I would still say, as a new agent, you really need that year one, career development, the training and the support that you get for you. So maybe taking on that assistant role or breaking into the boutique brokerage, maybe that comes in years 2, 3, or 4. Okay. Again, pros: luxury market means bigger commissions. Cons: it's hard to get into these companies, particularly as a new agent. They tend to not necessarily have the new agent training that they know you use, so it's going to be harder to break in as a new agent. Again, I'll say this: if this is, as you design your real estate career, maybe you come up with a 1 to 5 year plan on how to kind of break into that market. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And then to dig in again to some of these other business models, the recruiting / profit share brokers, these are the ones who are going to incentivize you to refer agents. So let me kind of stop on this one for just a moment and do a quick little case study, kind of tell you about an experience I've had with an agent named Andy, who I watched working at a large national brokerage just 2 years ago. And really right out of the gate, she jumped in, she did all the training available. I mean, every day she was in class, every afternoon she was on the phone, every weekend she was doing open houses. And towards, I think, halfway through 2020, which again, keep this in mind, that was a pandemic year, 6 months into her career, she was really, from my experience, she was killing it. And I just thought the world of her. I thought, wow, she's really going to do well. And of course, I reached out to her. I said, I wouldn't mind working with you. Maybe we should talk in about a year. I knew she really needed to get her feet wet, do a certain amount of business, and continue with her training and development, which I at the time didn't have the infrastructure to offer her. So here, I saw her a year later. She actually joined a company that really started promoting the residual income piece of her business. And I see her a year later. So she's now, I guess, she's close to 2 years, a little over 2 years in business now. Her business is really stalled out. And I see her putting a lot of energy into recruiting. And she's really enamored by the people at her company at national level who are earning 6-figure incomes, which, wow, that's fantastic, doing recruiting. But for her career, it's really stalled out. So I just say income, as long as it doesn't take away from the energy I need to put in my real estate business today. So that's my soapbox for just a minute.
Sorry, Doug, it looks like your connection cut out again there. We heard for her career.
Yeah, so
you were saying she was doing a great job kind of early on in her career. And it might have made sense, but then she switched.
Yeah, so she was doing a wonderful job, doing really stand-up job in her career the first year. And as she migrated to a company with a different business model, one with lesser support, and that's the big takeaway there. It wasn't that she was focused on recruiting, but she substituted her drive for growth and technical proficiency and building her business towards recruiting and residual income. And today, her real estate career is really stalled, in my opinion. So I would have wanted something different for her. And so I just ask you guys to kind of, take this with a grain of salt and think hard about it, where you're going to put your time and energy. Okay.
Great. Thanks.
Flat fee models, again, we've touched on it a couple of times already, but again, the biggest thing is, low overhead, low support for the most part. Now, I will challenge you, maybe you will find a company out there that has a flat fee and lets you keep most of the commissions, and they offer a ton of support. Now, if that existed, I think they'd be the biggest real estate company in the world, and maybe they're out there, and I just don't know about them yet. But so just keep that in mind. Again, pros and cons. Keep most of the commission. Cons, probably less support, less infrastructure. And by infrastructure, I'm talking brick and mortar office. I'm talking, copiers, phone systems. I'm talking technology for lead generation, managing your business, things like Salesforce or other CRM platforms to help manage all your contacts, email marketing, an intranet between agents and the company to be able to collaborate with, things like that, which are important to me and important to other agents out there. So those are some of the things I want you to keep in mind. Okay.
All right, so we have another brief poll here. So what is most important to you in a brokerage? There might be multiple things here, but try to pick the one that is kind of most important to you. Whether that's compensation, flexibility, education and training, mentorship, coaching, leads, the size, or something else. Okay. Looks like about almost half of us have answered. Give it a few more seconds for people to answer. Share the results here in a moment. Give about 5 more seconds. All right, thank you, everybody. So it looks like mentorship and coaching are going to be most important for over half of us who answered here. And then education and training, closely related to mentorship and coaching.
Yeah, this is really interesting. And I'm not surprised, because it's, in my opinion, if you showed up for this simple little webinar, and by the way, I really appreciate your time today and joining me. I know your time is valuable, but I'm really not surprised. If you showed up for this webinar today, then it shows me that you're really serious about taking your career and helping it take off quickly. And you guys have hit the nail on the head. Education, training programs, mentorship, and coaching. Those are the top categories that you should be thinking about over the next year, and maybe 2. I can't say that enough. All these other things are very important. Size of the office, providing leads, flexibility, compensation. All those are very, very important. But right now, it's all about business development, mentorship, coaching. So yeah, kudos to you guys. I think you're focused and on the right track. I'd love to see where this group is a year from now. It'd be really interesting to me. Okay. So this next segment, what to expect when talking to brokers. Okay, so hear me on this for a second. So let's take a step back, and I want you to kind of role play with yourself for a second and think back to the last time you interviewed for a job. Now, this typically, my guess is it was a W-2 paying job. It was a salary or an hourly wage kind of a job. And you probably responded to an advertisement either on Indeed.com or Monster Jobs or the classified ads or Craigslist. And you sent in a resume and they called you for an interview and you went in. And for the most part, they did all the talking. If you're like me, that's the experience you went through. So I want you to, just for a second, flip this around, okay? Now, here's the deal. These guys all want you, okay? You are valuable to them, and you're valuable because you have a real estate license. And if you have the real estate license, you have the ability to go earn a living with it. And if you go earn a living through helping people buy and sell homes, and you're going to earn commissions, the broker they're most likely going to be able to keep a portion of that commission. So you're a value to this brokerage. Okay. So I want you to keep that top of mind when you're interviewing with them. Okay. Here's some other things I want you to think about. So number one, when you go to work for them, you're going to be an independent contractor. You are not going to be an employee. You're going to be an independent contractor, and you will most likely have to adhere to a certain set of policies and procedures that the company will require of you. But other than that, you're an independent contractor. You are a small business owner from this minute forward, whether you have been in the past, and if some of you have been, others in this group have probably, been gainfully employed their whole life, but you're now a small business person, and you really need to be thinking about it. Okay. So when you get ready to start interviewing brokers, number one, we want you to get your questions outlined properly. Now we're going to get to that in a couple of minutes. Okay. But first, I want you to just go evaluate the market. Talk to your peers, talk to the people who are on the online chat rooms, talking about brokerages in your market. Try to hear about some of the pros and cons and weigh them against some of the things we're talking about today, if that makes sense. Okay. So we're going to start by you're just simply going to be emailing or calling different firms and just talking them over the telephone. You don't need to go in there face to face just to be able to weed some of these people out. So, but pick up the phone, set a few appointments, talk to 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. Okay, make it a 5 to 7 minute kind of questioning conversation. They're going to talk to you at a high level. You can talk back to them at a high level as well. Take some notes, but let that dictate ultimately the top 2 or 3 that you want to go get face to face meetings with. Okay. So now that you've kind of done that initial vetting of 4 or 5 companies, now you're ready to set appointments for your top 2 or 3 choices. And I want you to go in there and sit down with them face to face. Okay. And you're going to bring your interview questions, and you're going to take really good notes, and you want to hear from them what their value proposition is, right? Value proposition is going to include everything from the office location, the brand, the training, the support, the lead generation. And they're going to talk a lot about their top producing agents. Companies love to brag about that. And of course, that's wonderful, but what does that mean for me? That's what I want to know. How do I become one of those top producing agents, right? So if they have a company of 50 agents and they have 1 really high producing agent, I want to know what happened to the other 49. And honestly, that's what's most interesting to me. But along the way, I want them to show me the money. I want them to show me the value they're showing. So if they say, hey, we've got the greatest new agent curriculum in town, show it to me. What does that look like? Show me the outline. Does this mean in-office training? Is it remote? Is it something that's self-paced that I do by myself? Is there collaboration available? All of these things. So again, you want to meet with them, ask them good, hard questions, and whatever they tell you, talk when they talk about their features and benefits, ask them to show you. Okay. And keep this in mind. So put this in perspective for a second. It is very possible that every company you talk to is going to make you an offer. They're going to say, John, love your background. We're so excited for you to have a real estate license now. You seem like you're a great fit for a company, and we want to make you one of the top agents in our market center. And that's very flattering. Some companies will make an offer to just about everybody who walks through the door. So I'm not trying to take the wind out of your sail. I'm not. But keep in mind, you are going to have choices. Okay, don't sign up. Okay, just take good notes. It's now time to go home and process and digest this. Once you've talked to 3 or 4 brokers and interviewed with a couple of them, maybe 2 or 3, it's now time to go home and process and digest and put all this into perspective and make sure that you make the right choice. Okay. There are companies out there who really follow a butts and seats model. In other words, we bring in 100 agents a year. We have 80% attrition. But at the end of the year, we've now grown by 20 heads. And to them, that equals, 20 additional paychecks each month. So I'm not saying that some of those companies aren't great, but again, we're looking for something, a brokerage that's the right fit for you. Okay. Reflecting on what you bring to the table. So again, here's a really good exercise for you guys to go through before you start interviewing for real estate brokerages. What do I, as a person, what do I, as a real estate agent, bring to the table? Okay. Now that can be anything from, well, I have 10 years experience in consultative sales. I'm very personable. I have a huge network of people from my past life and business. My family is prominent in the community. It could be really any number of things. It could be I'm a youth sports coach, and I get to be in front of 20 new families every year with the various sports that I coach. These are all things that you bring to the table as a real estate agent as you're building your company. And this is good for you to know. Just like the brokers, they're going to try to communicate their value proposition. You're going to do the same. You're going to communicate your value as a real estate agent to the company, okay? Because you want them to want you, not just because you have a license and can fog a mirror, but because you are a smart, competent, capable human being who has the potential to be a great real estate agent, okay? So I really want you to sit down and go through this exercise and figure out, what is it that I bring to the table as a potentially great real estate agent in the future, okay? The other thing I want you to be thinking about as you're designing this real estate career, particularly your first year or two, is what are your reserves? Do you have startup expenses in the bank? And there's no right or wrong answer, okay? Some people might say, no, I have no money in the bank. I have no reserves. I have no credit cards. And for that agent, I might say, well, does it make sense to have a part-time job in the evenings so that you can spend your 9 to 5 focused on building your real estate business? For other people, it might be, yes, I've got 6 months reserves in the bank. I feel comfortable. I can put 110% of my effort into this. For others, it's hey, I've got a partner or spouse who's both financially and emotionally supportive. And so when I end up 90 days into my business, I still haven't received my first commission check, which is very possible, guys. That I still, I still can feel good about waking up in the morning and going and hitting the pavement hard and giving it my all. Okay. So these are some of the things I want you to be thinking about is, what do I bring to the table, and what does my business startup look like, particularly with regards to, reserves and things like that. Okay. And reflecting on your wants and needs. Okay, so we all have different styles. Where Doug Byron is, when I go to the real estate office, and I work at home, but I go to the office probably 4 times a week. I go there for the most part with blinders on. Okay, I go in there, I go into a phone booth, I make my calls, I do my work, I do my admin, and when I'm done, then I go out and I collaborate with people. We talk about listings that are coming in the market soon, or we're talking about a training we just went through that I feel might be good for a colleague or a peer, and we're collaborating on things like that, or we're talking about best practices. So for me, I need a little bit of both. I need a kind of a quiet place that's not at home, okay, so that I can be focused and I can grind out 3 or 4 hours of work uninterrupted without water cooler talk. But at the same time, I also need a collaborative space that I can go and sit down with people, meet with them, talk about best practices, maybe to do a training, for instance, something a little bit more fun and innovative, kind of environment. And so I need a little bit of both. But the question is for you is, given your set of preferences and what your experience is in your last job, for instance, what works for you, okay? And so company culture means a lot, not just in the corporate world, but also in the real estate world. Company culture really, really does mean a lot, whether it's positivity or, again, there's some companies that people are they really operate autonomously, without a lot of collaboration. And you need to really be thinking about what's important to you guys. Planning for interviews. Okay, so again, at the end of this webinar, you're going to receive a copy of interview questionnaire, of which we encourage you to modify with your preferences. Okay, so before you sit down and interview with brokers, you need to put together a plan. Okay, what do I want my career to look like 1, 3, 5 years down the road? Now, guys, you're not going to sit down and build a 10, 12 page business plan. Keep it simple, stupid is the kind of rule of thumb for the first year. A very simple little plan. It doesn't need to be formal in nature. This is really for you. It's kind of a guiding document. Really, at this point, it's just, hey, what do I want my real estate career to look like? Where do I want to take this to? What level do I want to go? Okay. And if you can effectively communicate that to a broker, and if they can give you a plan on how to get there, I think that might be a good fit. Now, the flip side is, if they tell you what your career should look like, I'm going to be really leery of that. Does that make sense? So in other words, if I sit down with a recruiter or a manager or a broker, a real estate company, and that recruiter tells me what a real estate career should look like, and tells me that their company is the only one that can help us get there, I'm leery. I'm really, really leery. That tells me they have a very generic plan, and I'm personally not interested in that. So I want you to sit down, brainstorm on what you want your real estate career to look like, take the questionnaire that we're going to give you at the end of this webinar, modify it according to your plan, and then sit down. That way, when you get in front of these brokers, the recruiters, you can ask them some hard questions. Put them on the spot. Remember, you're the interviewer in this situation. You are the interviewer. They're the interviewee. Okay. You want to figure out what are deal breakers for you. So, for instance, let's say hypothetically, you said to yourself, "Hey, Doug, I think that I should go to the office for half of my time." Well, and the company I'm interviewing with, even though they've got a great reputation, they've got all the support in the world, they've got one office and it's 20 miles away. And I just don't see myself sitting in traffic, 30, 45 minutes twice a day, just so that I can go to the office, because that's going to be a roadblock for me. That's going to become really inconvenient. And at some point I'm going to say, well, why don't I just stay home? They don't have to wear a pressed shirt. I don't have to spend the money and the gas to get there or the time. I'm going to stay home. Well, if I've already decided that going to an office is going to be important to me during that first year, I don't want to put up a barrier to entry for that. So again, figure out what are deal breakers. Another example, let's say you're newer, let's say you're younger, let's say you're in your 20s, early to mid 20s. You don't have a lot of people in your sphere of influence or people that you know who are going to be buying homes soon. Well, if that's the case, I want to recognize that early, and I want to go to a company where I think they're going to create opportunities for me. Okay. The opportunities could come in the form of open houses, lead generation, phone duty where I get inbound calls, or it could be working with other high producing agents who need help. Again, if you need to be part of a company that offers opportunities, and you find this company who looks great on paper for everything except that certain feature, okay, again, you're
I'm sorry, Doug, your connection broke up there again. Could you just repeat the last bit? We heard if you find somebody who looks great on paper, except, maybe for one key thing.
Yeah, if you find somebody who looks great on paper, except for this one key thing that's a deal breaker for you. Again, could be the location of the office. It could be the fact that maybe they don't have an on-staff. Okay, don't bend on that one. All right. Again, this is about wants and needs. Your needs should all be deal breakers. Okay.
Great. Thanks, Doug.
Okay. What kind of questions should we be asking? Again, we're going to give you a copy of a questionnaire, but just some things to think about between now and then. How many agents are in the office? Are they local? Are you guys local or national? Do you allow part-time agents? Okay. Some companies do not allow part-time agents, but some companies do not allow moonlighting. And I'm not necessarily advocating for you to have a part-time job. But what I do want you to understand is there is a startup phase, and there's no money on day number 30, day number 60, and often day number 90 as well. So you've got to have reserves, and for some people that's having a part-time job. So if that's your case, that's your situation, you want to know what the company policy is on that. Does the company offer new agent training? Is it comprehensive? Do they offer company leads? Some companies will lead with leads. And what I mean by that is, in this day and age, a lot of time that's internet leads. These are people who've gone to the company website, they've requested info about a property, and they've provided in exchange their phone number, their email address. And this is now a lead that the company can give to you to follow up, set an appointment, and ideally convert them into a client, okay? Most companies will tell you they offer lead generation. And I want to know, what does that look like? Is there training surrounding that lead generation system? What's the volume and frequency of leads? And what's the company's conversion rate? Okay. Just a quick little footnote on that. The national average for conversion rate on internet leads is 1% to 2%. Okay. If a company tells you 10 plus, I'm going to tell you right now, they're probably fibbing. So I would want to ask them how. How do you convert 5 times the national average? Okay. What kind of technology do they offer agents? So technology can come in the form of presentation materials for listing presentation, buyer presentation, market analysis presentations. Technology can come in the form of CRM, which is customer retention management software. Other people call it database management software. Others call it contact management software. This is a place where you put all your contacts, you keep them organized, stored, you add notes, you scheduling follow-ups. Sometimes they built in email campaigns so that you have an automated keep in touch system. This stuff is really, really, really important in your business. Marketing and prospecting is where most of your time is going to go in the next year. And if you have some automation around it, that's going to be valuable to you. Now, you can buy this stuff on your own for as little as $10 or $20 a month. But again, I want to know what the company has to offer. Technology is really, really important in this day and age. People will tell you that real estate is a dinosaur industry, and in some respects, that is the truth. But I will also say that there's a lot of cutting edge practices that are done in real estate. And the truth is they only last about a year. And then all of a sudden, what was tried and true then is now stale and outdated. So you need to constantly be refreshing your access to new technology and business practices. Okay.
So Doug, sorry to interrupt. I think we have just one slide left talking about the resource that we're going to hand out. But we are coming up on 1 hour here. So if it's okay with you, want to jump ahead to Q&A, make sure that we have a little bit of time for people to get some questions answered. So first question that I have is from Kurt. I like the idea of a full service brokerage to start. I'm going to come in with some deals of my own on homes that my partner and I purchase and sell each year. Do you find that full service companies tend to give greater splits on personal deals?
Good question. I think that very, very frequently what I find is that a company will say, we allow you to keep all the commission when you buy a home. Okay. And so, and I am going to underline a home. What they tend to want to avoid is a real estate investor who's joining their company just so they can keep all the commissions on their investment property. The other part to know about that is that more lawsuits originate from real estate investments than any other segment of real estate. So again, you want to just be aware of that up front. So do the full service, are they more likely to give you? I honestly would say that's a tough question to answer. I would say they're less likely to give you a break on your deals, but I think it's a very good question if you ask during the interview process. Okay. And maybe even just over the telephone, so you don't have to spend the hour with them. Okay. And thanks. It's a great question.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Here's a question from Lauren. What are things I would have to bring to an interview? Do I need a resume or my grades or certification or anything like that?
And Lauren, great question again. So the truth is you need nothing. I'm going to tell you, you need a pad of paper and a pen, okay? And bring your best personality. But bringing your resume can't hurt, particularly if you're applying to a company that's extremely selective. So these are things that you need to know going in. So in that telephone interview or when you're talking to agents and peers in your market, get a sense for the size of this company. If this company has 200 or 300 agents, they're going to be less selective. If you're trying to apply to a boutique brokerage that might have 30 agents with an average tenure of 7 years, and they're doing 5 million a year in sales already on average, that's going to be a company that's a little bit more selective, and you better bring your A game. You better be dressed more sharply. You bring your resume, be really polished, practice your interview with a peer before you show up. Treat it just like a job interview last time you were applying for a W-2 job. I hope that answers your question, Lauren. Thank you, and that's a great question.
So Beverly is asking, what is an example of a hard question for a broker?
Yeah, hard question for a broker. So you're telling me that your average new agent increases their production by 100% a year for the first 3 years in business. Could you show me some examples of that? And if they can name some names, wonderful. And the next question, part B, would be, how did they do it? Now, because here's the thing, that agent they point to, it might have been luck. They could have come from an exceptional background. They might be working 100 hours a week. And I want to know some of those things, right? In other words, show me the money. It's not just about what makes you great. Show me what makes you great, because talk is cheap, right? So I hope that answers your question.
So here's one about they have their license in California. They need to relocate. They can obtain reciprocity. Looking for a broker, but not sure how to go about choosing the right broker for their situation. What would be your advice to them?
So just to help everybody understand what reciprocity is. So let's say I'm licensed in Texas. There's going to be certain states that Texas has reciprocity with. And let's just call them Arkansas, Louisiana, and New Mexico, just because they're adjacent to Texas. And these are just examples, but let's say we have reciprocity. What that means is I could go to New Mexico and they do not make me take licensing coursework. They would just allow me just to take the test, okay? And if I take the test and pass it, now I can have licenses in 2 states. And then what happens is, as a realtor, I have to be a member of the National Association of Realtors. I have to pay dues to them. But now that I'm licensed in New Mexico and Texas, I don't pay my NAR dues 2 times. So anyway, that's what reciprocity looks like. But the question came from somebody moving from California, wanting to move to another state, and the state does have reciprocity, so that makes it easy to get a license in this other state. How do you choose this broker? So what I would do personally is I would Google, I'm going to use Austin as an example. I would Google real estate in Austin, and I would look to see the top 10 search results. Personally, that's what I would do. And I would spend 5 minutes perusing their website. And what I would want to do is I would want to look at their agents, okay? In other words, they're going to have something that's going to say our team. You need to look at their agents, and then I want to look at their listings, and I want to see, what kind of listings they have. That's personally what I would be doing. And then I would begin. So now what I'm doing is I'm now starting with the 200 companies that are in Austin. I'm now broken it down to let's say the top 10. And out of them, I'm going to now go through the same process that we outlined a few minutes ago. Call 4 or 5 of them, do a quick little 5-minute interview, and then decide if there's 2 or 3 you want to do a face-to-face or a Zoom with. Okay, and this take the process just like we talked about, lined out a few minutes ago.
Great, thanks. I'm just going to get a couple more here. I know we are over time. Want to be respectful of everybody's time, but are the questions that we're going to give people similar, and the questions that you've discussed similar to the questions you would ask if you were going into a different specialty, like a commercial real estate brokerage, for example?
No, they're not, to be honest. And again, a really good question. So just to take 2 steps back. So you got a real estate license. There's lots of ways you can make money in real estate. It could be inspections or appraisal, but we're talking about getting into sales. There's really about 4 areas I can tell you can get into with regards to selling real estate with or without a license. One of them is going to work for a new home builder. Now, you do not need a license for this. Some builders require a license. Sometimes they feel like it's a benefit to have a license, okay? We haven't touched on that, and that's not what this presentation is about, so I want to just kind of set that one aside. Other areas you can get into would be leasing, okay? So if you're a younger person, let's say you're recently out of college or in your early 20s and your peers aren't buying and selling homes, you may choose to go into leasing. Leasing is a little bit of a specialty, and going to a leasing company first might make the most sense. And then the other 2 paths you have to go to the traditional real estate brokerage route, which we've focused most of our time on today. Okay. And then last but not least is commercial brokerage. I can't say this enough. Residential and commercial real estate, those are 2 completely different businesses. In Texas, it's the same license. I think most states it's the same license. That doesn't make a lot of sense, because commercial real estate is more focused around the commercial investment world, and it's more financial in nature rather than residential real estate, which has a completely different focus. So my apologies for not saying this earlier, but the questionnaire and most of the content we've got today is going to be focused on building your residential home sale business, helping people buy and sell homes.
Great. And last question here, is it better to work with a team or an individual starting as a new agent? I've interviewed with a full service company and they take a percentage of your commission if you work with a team.
Great question. So I'm gonna lay out for you the 3-minute version of what I tell most people when they come to me saying, Doug, I'm taking my licensing work. What should I do? I'm going to lay out what I feel is a path that fits the largest number of people. Number 1, first year, go to a traditional brokerage that offers really sound, comprehensive training and business development. And of course, and for some people that'll be, focusing on national companies, sometimes it's local, but get new agent training one way or another. Even if you have to do it on your own, finding a third party, and doing the stuff you're doing today, but develop your first year, focus on business development. Year number 2, and hopefully by now you've got a few transactions under your belt, you've got your feet wet, you've sold a few properties, hopefully some mostly with buyers, maybe a listing or 2. Now, year number 2, this is now about going and getting really experienced. And so year number 2, I believe the best path is one of 2 directions. Number 1, it could be going on a team. Now, why do people go on a team? People go on a team because a team can virtually guarantee you opportunities. In other words, if a team says, if you join us within 30 days, we'll have somebody sitting in the backseat of your car writing contracts on the weekends. That's a good opportunity. Now, there's a high cost for that. So typically a team is going to be a 50-50 split, okay? But again, 50% of something is better than all of nothing, right? The other path that I'd say for a year, 2 or 3 agents might be going to a company that is more focused on lead generation. Now, in every market, and particularly in mine, we have 2 or 3 companies who really, their niche is internet leads. And not only do they generate a lot of internet leads, but they have really good best practices around those internet leads. And so again, this is about you plugging into an organization that it gives you opportunities. So again, year 2 or 3, go to a team or go to a company that offers lots of leads, okay? By year number 3, 4, 5, personally, I believe you should be building your individual business. You should be away from the teams where you're sharing 50% of your commissions. You should be away from some of these lead generation companies if they're a one-trick pony, because same thing, you're only going to net about 50% of those organizations. But by year number 3, 4, or 5, you should be focused on building your own business, which is going to be centered around a referral-based business. I can tell you 95% of the most successful agents build their business on referral-based business, and that's where you should be focused on by year number 3, 4, or 5. and you want to be joining a company who has support and collaboration and best practices around building your individual book of business and maybe even building your own team. Okay. Usually that doesn't come till year number 5+, but again, that to me is the evolution of an agent. And that's in a very simple, easy to understand format, as far as I can tell. It's designed for the average agent.
Great. Thank you. So everybody, that is our time. Thanks so much, Doug, for joining us today.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
And educating us on this. And thank you everybody for attending. I'm posting 3 links in the chat here. The first is a survey that you can take to tell us your thoughts and make suggestions on any future sessions you'd like to see and give us feedback. We appreciate your feedback. The second is a link where you can see more information on the other webinars that we have happening. There are 4 other upcoming webinars that you can choose to attend. And the last link is the link that we promised to that broker interview worksheet. You can, that's a Google Doc. You can save your own copy and add to it as you like, or just take the one we have and print it out and use it. So we hope that this has been helpful to you all, and wish the best and good luck everybody as you're getting started in real estate. All right.
Good luck, guys.
Thank you, everybody.